Member for Hughes.
I move the motion relating to illicit drugs in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper.
Member for Hughes has the call. You speak to it.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Firstly, in this motion, we note that illicit drugs can cause untold harm in our communities and on our streets, and that the government, firstly, is committed to targeting the supply, the demand and the harm caused to our communities by the scourge of illicit drugs. Secondly, that the government has made significant investments in our law enforcement agencies to do all they can to keep drugs off our streets. We acknowledge that in the last 2 years alone, our agencies have detected and intercepted more than 12.5 tonnes of narcotics and which have been attempted to be imported into Australia. We also acknowledge that Australian law enforcement officers continue to confront Australia's drug market and combat the criminal syndicates that peddle illicit drugs. And thirdly, we call on all members of the House to promote greater awareness of the harmful effects of illicit drugs on individuals and communities across Australia, and to support our law enforcement agencies in keeping drugs off our streets. Deputy Speaker, currently the Joint Standing Committee on Law Enforcement, which I'm the chairman of, has been having a very extensive inquiry into the scourge of crystal methamphetamines and its effect across our country. We've seen some very alarming evidence in our inquiry. We've been to hospitals and we've heard how the emergency rooms of hospitals are being greatly disturbed and affected by people coming in affected by crystal methamphetamines. We've heard at St Vincent Hospital in Sydney about patients coming in and actually physically ripping monitors off the wall, something that required superhuman strength, and throwing them across the room. We've seen in hospitals, the emergency rooms, we actually have to have almost special lockups, detention cells, where they can put these people in a special, virtually a padded cell within the emergency room to try and keep them away from other patients. We've seen the amazing work that our doctors are doing in this area, in emergency wards, and we give all credit to them. We've also heard from parents that have lost their kids to the scourge of drugs. Most tragic circumstances, heartbreaking circumstances of loving parents that have given evidence before us, telling them the circumstances about how drugs have taken the lives of their children. We've also heard evidence from our law enforcement officials. And what they told us, Deputy Speaker, which was quite surprising, they said that for crystal methamphetamines, the street price in Australia is the highest in the world. They said nowhere is the street price as high as that the drug dealers are able to get from Australia. And because it is so high, it's attracting criminal gangs and smugglers from all over the world that are targeting Australia. And there are so many multiple sources through China, the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. These countries, many of them have drug problems of their own, but also the drugs are being manufactured in those countries and imported into Australia. And of course, the difficulty for our customs and border protection forces is that the drugs are so physically so small and difficult to detect. But even though we congratulate the great work of our law enforcement officials, one of the particular concerns that I have, Speaker, is the source of supply. Even if we were able to put a real clamp hold down and cut that supply off, that will only boost the price and attract more and more people into the market. But ultimately, Deputy Speaker, we have to work on education. We have to work more and more as we can on educating our young people to realise the harm that these drugs do to them. And that is certainly not an easy task. We've heard from specialists in this field explaining to us the difficulty of trying to educate young, with really immature minds that don't have the actual full developed powers of reasoning and logic that are being taken in the scourge of these drugs. But, Deputy Speaker, we need to continue to work on this. Obviously, the key focus, I believe, going forward must be education.
I thank the honourable member.